Welcome to this week's Gullmouth Action podcast, where we take a look at all the latest goings on at Brighton and Hove Albion, Crawley Town and Sport in Sussex. I'm Matt Poll and I'm joined by Crawley Town expert Mark Dunford, Sussex sport guru Steve Bone and Sam Morton, who covers Brighton and Hove Albion and the Reds. There was FA Cup delight for two of our teams in the fourth qualifying round on Saturday. We'll pick over the bones of an excellent weekend for Horsham and Worthing and take a look at the draw for the first round prop-up, which also involves Crawley Town. Meanwhile, both Brighton and the Reds return to competitive action this week after the international break. We'll preview Albion's league game against Man City and their Europa League encounter with Ajax, along with the Reds' League 2 clashes against Crewe and Walsall. You can read all the stories we were talking about with videos and pictures online at sussexworld.co.uk/sport, and you can check out other great videos on shotstv.com and Freeview channel 276. But starting with this weekend's FA Cup clashes, Horsham FC provided a shock, beating National League outfit Dorking 2-0 at home in front of a sellout crowd. I don't think many of us were predicting a win for Horsham in general, Steve, but to do it in such a convincing manner was probably even more of a shock.
Yeah, we talked about the three games with the Sussex teams last week on this podcast, didn't we? And we said Worthing, we felt, had a very good chance. We didn't really give Horsham too much of a chance against a team who played two divisions above them. But pretty comfortable win, really. And I'm going to spin it around in a minute because I know you're the host here, but you were there. Yeah, fantastic for Horsham to reach the first round. Second time in 3 years. You know, there are clubs at their level that never seem to get to the first round. You know, I can think of one who hasn't been there since 1995, who I won't name here. But yeah, professional performance in front of a big crowd. And I mean, you tell us, what was it as comfortable as the scoreline and match reports suggest?
Yes, it was indeed. No hyperbole, when Horsham should have been at least 4-0 up at half time. They had a perfectly good goal, what I thought perfectly good goal ruled out for offside. Very strange seeing the fourth official and a mini version of VAR being used at Horsham's level. But I was very disappointed with Dorking. They didn't really trouble Horsham. And I think on the day, if you'd said which one is the National League club and which one is the Isthmian Premier Club, I don't think you'd been able to say that Dorking were the National League team and Horsham the Isthmian Premier one, which I'm sure would probably rankle a little bit with Dorking manager Mark White, wouldn't it, Steve? He had some choice words for the players after the game. If you can repeat any of what he said, what was the general gist of what he had to say after the loss against Horsham?
He's gone viral for it. And if you go viral as a football manager, it's either very good news or very bad news. And for Mark White, it's very bad news. He absolutely ripped into his players. I mean, you've said there that they didn't really show up, didn't turn up for what was a big game for them. You know, there's a lot of money at stake if you get through to the first round. And he basically said they weren't very good, but he used a lot of swear words in doing so. A lot of people picked up on it, and fans were split in their reaction to what he said. Some were saying he was just too personal, and is that a good way to manage players? You know, are they then going to do it for him next game? Others said, quite right, you know, if they get paid okay at that level. If they've not turned up for a big game, if they've not put the effort in, then they deserve to be sworn at in that manner. So you can look at it both ways. But yeah, it gave us a good story on Sussex World, and I'm sure it amused a few Horsham fans as well.
Mark, as someone who's had to deal with someone who's quite opinionated in the past at Crawley Town, without mentioning any names, and what's it like dealing with a manager like that?
I kind of like it because I like a manager being honest. You like a manager coming up and just saying what they think, not getting the usual media trained manager saying, "Oh, the game of two halves, blah blah blah. Proud of my players, blah blah blah." But he went to. I personally think he went too far. And yeah, you've got to try and keep your players on side. I think to some extent. Yes, criticise them. Scott Lindsay. We'll get onto it later. But Scott Lindsay on Tuesday night, he had a few choice words to say about his players, but he kept it professional as he talked about them. I mean, I think he wanted to do a Mark White, but he didn't. But Mark White is a funny one, isn't he? Because I've seen him. I follow on TikTok and that, and does he do it just for the publicity and for the clicks and for the views? I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I might be doing him a disservice there. He might just be an honest, cheeky chappy kind of thing. But I don't know, part of me is a little bit cynical about he knew he was going to go viral with this kind of thing.
Oh, see, I'm going to say the opposite, that Dorking generally were, considering they were a National League team against an Isthmian Premier team, they were rotten against Horsham on Saturday. And I think any kind of criticism, although you could say the language you used was probably a bit much, I think it was very much warranted, especially when they had former Crawley Town player, Mark, George Frankham at right back.
You said he was their best player, didn't you?
Yeah, it was great. It was really, really good. It's just a shame that no one else seemed to turn up. Huge result for Horsham, which we'll come on to later in the grand scheme of things. But yeah, also in the FA Cup fourth qualifying round, Worthing joined Horsham in the first round proper, courtesy of a 2-0 home win over National League South rivals Bath City. It seemed like another excellent performance for Adam Hinchelwood's boys, Steve, didn't it?
It was actually. They were very thin on the ground in terms of players. They actually only had 2 senior fit defenders for that game, both of whom played in the middle of defence, and they put Kane Wills back in a back 3, who's normally more used to playing midfield, and they then used 2 more attacking players as wing backs. So to have that sort of makeshift defence against a team from your own division who have also started the season quite well makes it hard. Tight first half, and then Worthing scored twice in, a bit like Horsham in the first half. Worthing early in the second half, 2 goals from Danny Cashman, and they were, I think, were pretty comfortable after that. For Worthing, that's first time in the first round since 1999. I think Adam Hinchelwood said afterwards he was still at school last time they got that far. Not sure if that's quite right, but he may be. He must be younger than I thought, if so. But yeah, great for them. We'll talk about the draw in a minute, but they've not got a glamorous tie in the first round. They're away to Alfreton, and it's a game that they can win. So they've now got to think, right, let's do that again and get through to the second round if we can, and get some more prize money in the bank. But yeah, well done to Worthing.
Before we move on to the first round proper draw, Lewis were also in the FA Cup fourth qualifying round. They're away at fellow National League outfit Aldershot Town. Unfortunately, there was no fairy tale win for Lewis. They were beaten 4-1 by the shots. Commiseration to Lewis. But for the teams that are left in the first round proper of our non-league sides, the draw was made on Monday, and one of our non-league clubs can look forward to a big away day to a League One and former Premier League club, can't they, Steve? Tell us a little bit more about the draw, Steve. And
yes. Barnsley versus Horsham came out of the hat. I know you were pleased because that's almost local compared to Carlisle away, which you went to a couple of years ago for Horsham. So we're pleased to be a bit closer to home. It's a great tie for them, isn't it? As Dom has said to you this week, Barnsley are the third highest ranked team in the next round by virtue of the fact that they're currently third in League One. Not so long ago, they were in the Championship. For those with longer memories, they were in the Premier League for a couple of years back in the late 90s. So it's a proper club, real big ground for Horsham to go to. They will take a massive number of travelling fans, I would think. We're waiting to see if it's going to be on TV. I would have thought there's a fair chance it could be. BBC or ITV might be interested in that one. And what a great day out. I mean, you wouldn't give Horsham much of a chance against a team who are that many divisions above them. But a great occasion for them. Chance to earn some more money, hopefully a bit of TV money as well, and really one to look forward to for them.
And Worthing, Steve, who do they end up? You mentioned it probably won't be glamorous, but it's very much winnable for them.
It's Alfreton Town away. Alfreton's up north somewhere, I think. I mean, everything north of the South Downs is up north, isn't it? So we'll say it's up north. I think it's sort of Derbyshire way.
Derby way, yeah.
Yeah. So it's a team they won't have played before and probably don't know too much about. But Alfreton are National League North, so same step as Worthing, currently 10th in their table, doing okay. I mean, it's a long journey. That could, Worthing aren't used to going that far for an away game, so that could count against them. But Adam Hinchelwood, as always, will do his homework on Alfreton, and I'm sure they'll go up there thinking they've got a chance, and maybe they'll get them back down to Woodside Road for a replay. But it'd be great to see Worthing in the second round.
I spoke to Adam on Tuesday night after they beat Crawley in the Senior Cup, and he was saying that the great thing is there's going to be a Step 6 side in the second round, whatever happens, and both sides will think they can win it, which is going to make for a great tie. So it's a really interesting one, but let's hope Worthing get through. It'd be great. Sort out their press box for when they get Portsmouth at home in the second round.
We'll come on to that in the second half, Mark, don't worry. But without meaning to turn this into the Horsham FC podcast, Would there be slight disappointment? I know that obviously it's a big tie playing Barnsley, but Steve, do you think it'd be disappointing if, for television's sake, they end up playing them on a Friday evening or a Monday evening due to the whims of television?
I suppose it'd make it harder for the fans because it is a long way to go, and it will probably mean there are some fans that can't go, if it's a working day. But for the club, if you look at the bigger picture for the club, the money they would make from it being on TV would probably make that worth it, and it is a bit more exposure, and it's a chance for any fans who can't make it to watch it live when they might not be able to otherwise. So I think on balance they would probably rather have it on TV.
Selfishly, I'd rather they had it at Saturday at 3:00, but we'll have to wait and see, won't we?
As all football matches should be. Yeah.
Oh, well, quite right too, Steve. Yes, but Crawley Town, as mentioned, are also in the first round proper. What's the reaction to their draw then, Mark? It's not been quite with the same giddy reaction that Horsham Barnsley has received, is it?
No, yeah. So they've got Notts County away. Notts County, obviously, currently, I think they're second or third in the League Two table. They're second, sorry. And yeah, Crawley faced them away at the end of the month as well. So they've travelled to Notts County twice in 3 weeks, I think it is. So yeah, the fans straight away were just like, oh, that's an atrocious draw. We never get a good draw in the FA Cup. I think I saw a stat something along the lines of 10 of the last 11 games have been against teams in their league or higher. And they just don't seem to get that nice, easy first round draw. You want to be at home, don't you, in the first round if you're going to draw someone in your own league. But Notts County, they're looking to win the league and get promoted this year. So whether they see the FA Cup as disposable and think they won't take it as seriously, Scott Lindsay will go out there wanting to win. Scott Lindsay was quite diplomatic, saying that if they've got to play good teams to get better. So, but I don't know if he was particularly happy with the draw.
Well, we'll talk a little bit more about Crawley after the break, and we'll also discuss Brighton, a huge week for Brighton, where they take on Man City and Ajax in the Europa League. This week sees Brighton Hove Albion return to action following an imposed hiatus due to the international break. Roberto De Zerbi's men visit a Manchester City side reeling after a 1-0 defeat at Arsenal. How do you see this one going, Sam? And should the Seagulls be wary of a wounded Man City?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think Man City are obviously coming into the game on a really bad run of form, really, which is really unlike them. They've only won, obviously, in Europe recently and had 2 consecutive defeats in the Premier League, obviously, against Wolves and then Arsenal, sorry. So it's a real tough game for Brighton because, obviously, as you say, they're coming up against a wounded animal in Man City that are going to be desperate to put things right and to get things back on track. So, but then Brighton, obviously, will be coming into the game with a bit more confidence after that good result against Liverpool, and they probably should have won that game when you look back at the chances they had and obviously the kind of the capitulation they had at the end of that first half defensively. But I can see a high scoring game and it could really go either way. So one really to look forward to for the fans.
I'll ask you for your score prediction at the end of the podcast. But Albion then host Ajax in their third game of their inaugural Europa League campaign on Thursday evening. The Seagulls are bottom of the group, but they're just 3 points adrift of group leaders, AK Athens. So how imperative, Sam, is it that Brighton get the win against an Ajax side who is seemingly in free fall at the moment, if you'd read anything in the press?
Yeah, and Ajax are extremely just not themselves, you would say, just really, really struggling in the league this season. I think when you look at the squad, it's nowhere near as impressive as it has been in recent seasons. And obviously they really have had all of their kind of top players taken away from them, really. And in maybe a similar way to Brighton, but Brighton seems to be able to cope with it. It definitely seems that Ajax are suffering from the effects of their players being taken, and they really are struggling in the league and things aren't going to plan for them. So it is a great opportunity for Brighton, obviously playing them at home first, to get a much needed win in the group. It was vital to get that point at Marseille in the previous game and to kind of keep their hopes alive. And now they really have to back that up, I think, and get their first win of the campaign against an Ajax team that are really struggling. And it's a kind of a perfect opportunity, really. And if you get a win at home, suddenly the group is extremely favourable for Albion, and they can then obviously potentially get a draw away as well, and it's completely in their hands. So another game that I'm really looking forward to watching. It's it's difficult because I think it's difficult to say Brighton should be favourites in a game against Ajax. It seems crazy to say, and it just seems mad. But we kind of had that against Athens in the first game where Brighton were were obviously the clear favourites to win that game, but then really shouldn't have been when it was their first ever Europa League game. So much pressure without the captain, Lewis Dunk, on the night. So all sorts of pressures for Brighton, and that element of expectation might not be too good. I think it's that sometimes Brighton play better when they're a little bit of the underdogs. So it'll be interesting to see. But again, I'm really looking forward to watching and seeing how Brighton get on.
Draw not good enough for him?
I think it needs to be a win. I think definitely at home. I think a draw away would be good. But at home, I think a win's needed. I think obviously after the loss against Athens, the draw at Marseille, I think they need a win. They need a win. I think it's a good opportunity to do it at home with a crowd behind them against a team completely out of confidence. So I think get a win at home and then try and nick a draw away, and I think it'll be in their hands.
4 points. 4 points in those two games would be a pretty good result, wouldn't it, for De Zerbi, I think?
Well, I think if they finish third, don't they get into the I can't even think what it's called, the Conference League or something like that, which is quite winnable, I suppose, for them. So, still plenty to play for. Speaking of Lewis Dunk, as Sam mentioned, he started for England in their friendly against Australia. Did anyone watch it? And if so, if you did watch it, how did they get on? Okay, cool. Anyone watch it at all?
I saw bits of it. I was I was busy that evening, so I didn't get to watch all of it. But I watched the highlights and obviously read all the reports. And Lewis Dunk got all the praise again, and it just goes to show that it's a farce that he hasn't been in the team before now, to be honest. And he's just proving why he should have been there a long time ago. He's class, really. He kind of brings that composure to the team, brings that kind of De Zerbi ball to the team, and I think he's an excellent player, and he obviously got man of the match on the night as well, and got a clean sheet. So fantastic, really. I think he nearly got a clean sheet in the previous game as well. I think it was an own goal that kind of robbed him of it. So really good performance from Dunk, and hopefully he's a mainstay in the team now going forward. Yeah,
I wouldn't get your hopes up considering Southgate loves Maguire, but that's probably a question to ask on a different podcast, isn't it? But anyway, moving on to Crawley Town. As mentioned, they were without a league fixture this weekend due to the international break, but they did travel to Worthing in the Sussex Senior Cup, and by all accounts, Mark, they enjoyed a bit of a nightmare, didn't they? Tell us about the game at Worthing, please.
It was anything that could go wrong went wrong at Worthing for Crawley on Tuesday. They lost 6-2 in the end. They took the lead through Adeyemo, who looked really good. Then Jesse Stark equalised with an absolute stunning strike, 25-yard, 30-yard thunderbolt top corner. Then Adeyemo scored again, and you just thought, oh, Crawley are just, they'll tighten up and they'll just see this out. But no, they let in. Jake Robinson scored a quick brace, and then it started getting even worse. Harry Ransom limped off. Then Adeyemo, who looked like he took a knock quite early on, and I think it was due to the pitch because they were playing on 4G. Obviously, they don't play on that normally. And and then the second half, then you saw Travis Johnson petulantly get sent off. It looked like he grabbed Bailey Smith around the neck and pushed him over. And he got sent off, and then it all just went wrong. And Worthing just were ruthless. They just went out and just destroyed Crawley in the end. And there was just I don't know what it was with Crawley. They just looked like they didn't want to be there. And I think they're going to regret the decision to swap the fixture, because it was originally a home tie for Crawley, and they swapped it to Worthing. And because not only did they lose, they played on a pitch which looks like it cost them 2 players. Adeyemo looks like he could be absolute quality, but he's just come back from a long injury, and this one looked quite rough. Sam put up a picture with his story with him being carried off. He couldn't walk off. He was that bad. So it was a bit of a disaster, really. And Scott, I mean, I might pass it over to Sam actually for what Scott Lindsay said after the game, because he didn't go full Mark White, but he went as close as he possibly could.
Yeah, no, he did. It was the most angry I've ever seen him, to be honest. I think I obviously saw that clip after the pre-season friendly against Portsmouth where he completely lost it. And I ended up having TalkSport on the phone saying they wanted to talk about it because it was that crazy of what he was saying. Obviously, he said that there were players that would never play for the club again. And still to this day, we don't know who those players were and if they have played for them again. But it was kind of a similar kind of interview, really, where he said the players just weren't ready for the game. They said they hadn't prepared for it. They were unprofessional, and it seemed he was kind of implying that they thought that Worthing would be a walkover, and they didn't really prepare like they should have done for the game. So they weren't running, they weren't trying, they were hiding basically, and it was really damning. Really, it didn't look good on players at all. And he said that the players have been knocking on his door to say they should be next in line to be in the team, and he said they won't have any excuse to do that again now, which is pretty firm stance from him really. And I think it's a bit worrying that Crawley's backup team is in his mind not good enough. That his first team he's obviously happy with, but when he gets a few injuries, and clearly he's not happy with who he has to rely on to come in for them. So a bit concerning from that point of view. So it'd be interesting to see what happens going forward, and if the players can make amends that really didn't turn up against Worthing.
Are we expecting a massive reaction from them on Saturday against Crewe and then away at Walsall on Tuesday, Mark?
Yeah, I think so. Well, I don't think you'll see any, apart from maybe Will Wright, you won't see any of that team anywhere near the first team, maybe on the subs bench, obviously, on Saturday. But it was interesting. Clyde Lolos didn't play, but I assume he's going to be starting against Crewe this week because Adam Campbell, who was a victim of that horrific challenge against Wrexham that's sort of sending off, he's got ligament damage, so he's out for, I think he said 4 to 6 weeks, maybe longer. So, they need a big reaction because obviously the last home league game as well, they lost 1-0 to Wrexham. So they need a big change. The Crewe won't be easy. Crewe are the top scorers in the league. We know Crawley have leaked goals a little bit. They've shored up recently a little bit more. But, it'll be a good entertaining game. But, Lindsay won't let anything like that happen again, from what he said. But with those players that played on Tuesday night, they've got a chance to redeem themselves and the EFL trophy against Aston Villa in a couple of weeks' time as well. So, it won't be easy against Crewe. They've got Mickey Dimitru, former Newport County from our shores. He was a former Worthing player, I think, or he comes from this way. And Bogner probably played for it. Yeah, and Bogner as well. Thank you, Steve. He scored 5 goals already from the centre of defence as well. I think I understand that Crawley wanted him in the summer, but he chose Crewe, and obviously they've got Jack Powell as well, Crawley's Player of the Year. So, and when they come up against Walsall, they've got Isaac Hutchinson, who used to play for Crawley as well, and he scored a hat-trick at the last time out for Walsall. So, it's not going to be an easy few days for Crawley, but Scott Lindsay will get a reaction out of this team.
Excellent. And with that in mind, shall we have a stroll down Steve Bone's score prediction corner? Starting with Man City Brighton, Sam Morton, how do you see that one going?
I think we're a high-scoring game. I think Brighton have obviously struggled to keep clean sheets this season, so I don't see that happening away at Man City. And Man City are going to be desperate for a win, so I think it'll be 3-2 Man City.
Ooh, Steve, how do you see it going at the Etihad?
For the first time this season, I'm not predicting a Brighton draw. I'm going Man City 1, Brighton 2.
Ooh.
I think City's woes to continue.
Mark, do you have Steve Bone's optimism?
No, I'm going 4-2 Man City.
I generally think City might end up scoring 5, but we will wait and see. Then we've got Brighton Ajax on Thursday. Mark, how's it going for Brighton?
2-0 Brighton. They've got to come out and win. I'm going for a 2-0 Brighton win. Ajax seem like a shambles at the moment.
Mr. Bone.
I think I'm back to predicting draws now. I think they need to win, but I think they might struggle 1-1.
And Sam Morton.
I think 2-1 Brighton. Again, I think they'll concede as they just seem to concede in every game this season, but they score in every game as well. So I think they'll nick a win. I think 2-1.
And as we're quite pushed for time, we'll do it together. Crawley's game against Crewe and then Walsall Crawley. Steve, how do you see those two games going?
I think they'll beat Crewe 3-1, and I think they'll lose 2-0 at Walsall.
Sam Morton.
I think they'll draw Crewe 2-2, and they'll win 1-0 at Walsall.
And Mark Dunford with the final word.
I'm going 3-1 against Crewe at home. They're going to win, and it'll be a 1-1 draw away at Walsall. That's what I'm going for.
Excellent stuff. Well, thank you very much for your time, chaps, and thank you very much for joining us this week, Mr. Morton. You can catch up with all the latest sports news covering everything we've talked about today at sussexworld.co.uk, and you can watch more excellent videos on shotstv.com and Freeview channel 276. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next week.